Okay, and we're live. A pleasant afternoon to each and every one of you. Good afternoon to our Zoom participants and good afternoon to our FB Live viewers. So welcome to another e-learning session powered by Ariva Academy. So our topic today is rethinking customer intimacy strategies during the pandemic. My name is Irish Malonda Samson and joining me is Mr. Howell Mabalad as our moderator. Hello, Sir Howell.
Hello, Miss Irish, our dear, beautiful president.
Thank you, Sir Howell. So it's nice to see you again.
Yes.
Welcome to our afternoon session of e-learning. So, and let's now acknowledge our participants from out of the country. Sir Howell, join me in welcoming our participants from Surabaya, Indonesia, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Kota Kinabalu, Malaysia, Lalitpur, Nepal, Singapore, Bangkok, Thailand, Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Sacramento, California. Thank you for joining us today. And in order for us to have a smooth flow of our e-learning session, here are the house rules. So for those of you who are first-time viewers of our e-learning session, please type hi in the chat box now. Let's wait for them to type in hi. Kathleen, Joanne, Marlene, thank you for joining us. Hazel, Pia, Joshua, welcome to our e-learning session. Hello to Ms. Mylene Buta from Isabela, Christy Aglupus from QC, Des, and Alish Arzagon watching from FB Live. Okay, hi Ms. Rina, welcome to our e-learning session. Mr. Bobby, okay, Erwin, Queenie. Okay, so let's do a sound check. You will be needing a good quality headset. Please use the following codes to show if you can hear us. 111, please type in now. Okay, 111. 222 means you cannot hear us. 2121 means the sound is breaking up, and question mark if you don't understand anything. So sound check, 111, loud and clear, audible, okay. Thank you, Ms. Jenny, Pia, Clark, Joshua. Okay, let's move on. We will be having a quick break later after the presentation of our guest speaker and before we move on to our question and answer portion. Participants' microphones will be temporarily disabled by the administrator during discussion to avoid interruptions. Questions will be entertained after each topic of the session. For questions and clarification during the provided time after each topic, please click the raise hand button for the administrator to enable the microphone for live questions. Type in your questions at the Q&A box. One question at a time will be entertained. For comments and feedback, please scan this QR code. This will be directed to our feedback form. Please send us your comments, suggestions, topics to discuss in order for us to improve our future e-learning session. And now to discuss rethinking customer intimacy strategies during the pandemic, Mr. Howell Mabalot, please introduce our speaker.
Of course, Madam President, it's an honor to introduce once again our speaker for the nth time during this COVID-19. Ito yung pinakamasipag natin na resource speaker who happens to be recognized as a leading thought leader, certified consultant, and trainer in the field of strategic business management in the Philippines and around the Asian region. With over 30 years of experience. Everyone, let's all welcome back on our webinar, Professor Ricardo Ricky de Vera, MBA, CSP.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Howell. Thank you, Irish. And it's nice to be back again to be able to share to our viewers as well.
It's a pleasure to have you, Sir Ricky.
Thank you very much. And with the announcement just this Tuesday of Malacanang, there has been a reclassification of what will happen after May 16. I guess everybody will now be more attuned in terms of, so what do we do now with our business with this news? So, ano na po tayo, as I understand it, from ECQ, we're now into the modified ECQ. And it does give us a bit more freedom, although of course you still have to follow certain appreciations of parameters. I'd like to find out, Howell, can you help me here? I noticed we have, wow, we're hitting 252 already joining us so far, and I know there's still a lot more. I was just wondering how many of them already have actually seen me already in the seminars or maybe in some workshops, para lang for me to understand how many of our viewers right now are familiar with my style.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
We'll ask them to raise their hand. If this is not the first time, you're asking Sir Ricky if it's not the first time or if it's the first time.
Yeah, if for those of you who are seeing me for the first time, for those of you who are familiar, siguro, please raise your hand. So please, I'd like to find out.
If you're familiar with Sir Ricky de Vera, this is the second, third, or fourth time you've seen him via our free live webinar. Raise your hand for our participants here in Zoom. Also from Facebook Live, you can also do that. So either raise your hand, or better yet, I think they'd say yes.
That's true. Actually, because some of them might be my students, and of
course, yes, from Leonardo Silianco, Priscilla Dizon, yes, Bobby James Castillo, yes, Richard Sistoso, Heidi Ramos. We have a lot of yeses, Sir Ricky.
That's good to hear. Actually, kung student ko yan yung mga pinasa ko. Kasi pag hindi ko pinasa yan, hindi yan masusubaybay na. Anyway. And I'd like to also find out how many of them are raring to go back again to their employment and to their business and to serve their customers. Yes, maybe we can find out.
Okay, so this time say I. If you're excited to see your customers again, say I. One. From Francis Aceron, Ronaldo Daggio, Michael Lee. I can't read anymore. There's a lot of them. Yes.
A lot.
They're all excited. Okay. They're all excited to see their customers.
Okay, wonderful. So let me therefore put this in a better appreciation by everyone. The title of my sharing this afternoon is Rethinking Customer Intimacy Strategies. Actually, although it says during the pandemic, these are strategies you can also use post-pandemic. Okay. Now, the realization I'd like everybody to understand is this. Uh, there is what I call as a business consultant, advisor, and a behavioral psychologist. There is what I call in customer relations the deep dive. Okay, ulitin ko lang ha, the deep dive stages. Okay, so you've got customer relations, you've got the servicing up there, you've got the acquisition up there, and then I have this, I call it the 38 parallel, which is deep dive. Okay, under the deep dive, uh, the first stage is intimacy. That's this is my, if you would like to call it, this is a roadmap that I have created, talking also to a number of consultants and mentors as well, and on my own. So the first level is intimacy. Okay, that is what I will be discussing this afternoon. There is a second level, passion, and there is a third level, obsession. And each of these three levels have their own strategies. Okay. Of course, we do not have the time to talk about the second and the third, but I'd like to share the organizations that appreciates we need to go deep dive are actually the organizations that will thrive moving forward. So perspective na po natin yan. I'd like just to please appreciate and understand. Intimacy is the first deep dive level. There are still two more, although we will not be discussing it. But yes, we do provide that for those companies who'd like to go in depth. Okay, now I go into the intimacy. Okay, I go into the intimacy. And these are the questions I'd like each and everyone to think about first. Okay, these are the questions I'd like each and everyone to think about first. Tatlo pong stages, three stages that you have to look at. This is called landscape. The first stage is before the pandemic, before the COVID-19. So I'll put it this way, 2000, December 2019 and before. Okay, let's put it that way. In December 2019 and before, this is called post-pandemic. Oh, by the way, I'd also like to make this very clear po. Itong COVID-19 is the worst pandemic in modern times in the 20th century. I just like to clarify because we had even worse disruptive pandemics earlier. There was even one pandemic that affected not just 3 million citizens of the world, but there was one pandemic years back. It affected one-fourth of the total global population. But we are still here. The world has continued. Okay, now going back, let us ask this question. 2019, December, and before that. That's called pre. Three questions I'd like each of you to ask yourselves. Whether you are a business owner or an account officer or somebody working for an organization or an entrepreneur. Unang-unang tanong ko, my first question is this. What was your revenue stream before the pandemic? Gaano kalaki? How big was your revenue stream? Okay. And was it a revenue stream that was healthy? Just in case people don't, not everybody understands. Revenue stream means to say sales revenue. Okay. How was it?
Versus target,
Then
sir.
I have a,
Okay.
yeah, right. Revenue yan. Sa tayo, top na yan. Di ba? When you sell
Mm.
something, you're supposed to get revenue. So how was your revenue stream before the pandemic in modern times?
So Ricky, is that a question for our participants that they have to
It's for
answer?
them to reflect on.
Reflect
Okay,
on.
it's for them to reflect on. Okay, because ibabangga ko yan later. It's for them to reflect on how was it, how big was it, how much was it. Next question is, how was your bottom line? Of course, in between that, if they are into financial statement, meron silang cost and expenses. Okay, but I'm asking now the third. Let's go to the second question. Kamusta yung bottom line nila before the pandemic? Were they profitable? Were they generating income, etc.? Okay. And the third question I want them to reflect: how was their market share? Okay. Kamusta ang kanilang market share? How many accounts, how many customers did they have? So this is for reflection ito ha. Three critical questions. Pwede natin isama yung pang-apat. How was your cost and expenses? Because cost and expenses minus revenue is equal to profit. Tapos yung, but how was your market share? Yun yung unang phase that I'd like them to think about. Okay, how was it? Okay, answer it to yourself. Okay, answer it to yourself. Okay. Now, I go to the second part of the landscape. Since March, and I think for some, since January, because there were others that I know, nung January, because of the Taal volcano disruption, okay, their businesses were already affected. So I will include that. From late part of January until today, and I call that during the pandemic. Okay, isama na natin yung sital. First question to reflect on: how is your revenue now compared to how it was before all of this has happened? Number two, how is your expenses
Hello, Sir Ricky. Sir Ricky. I'm not sure if we lost Sir Ricky or you lost me. Can I see people in the chat box? Hello? Are we all here? Did we lose Sir Ricky, everyone? We lost Sir Ricky. Okay, so in the meantime, while Sir Ricky will try to reconnect and enter our webinar, our Zoom room. Hey, Sir Ricky, welcome back. We lost you. Sir Ricky, we cannot hear you, sir. Sir Ricky, we cannot hear you. Hello?
same questions that I'd like them to ask themselves, you know? Let's
Sir
put
Ricky,
it
Sir
here.
Ricky.
Let's put it here, therefore.
Hi, Sir Ricky. Can you hear me, sir?
Actually, right.
We lost
I can
you
hear
for
you.
a minute there. We lost you for a minute there.
Okay.
Okay,
Sige.
sir. So we're doing the, you mentioned about
Assessment.
January. Yeah, from January to the present in the landscape. You were talking about
Right.
when we lost you during the
Right.
pandemic.
Correct. So I'm asking them to reflect on the same questions.
Okay.
How is my revenue? How is my
Bottom
line? How is my market share? And how is my cost and expense today over the last 4 months? And then I'd like them to think of the third scenario, yung post-pandemic. Moving forward, what do they see in terms of their revenue moving forward? What would it be when they bounce back? Okay. And then what do they see with regards to their cost and expenses moving forward when they bounce back? What do they see with regards to their net income? Or will there still be when they bounce back after the pandemic? And the fourth question there is, how do they see their costs and expenses when they bounce back after the pandemic? I'm using the word here, bounce back, as a word to say because they'd like to continue. Okay? So I'd like them to kindly reflect on those three stages or time periods: before, during, And then after, of course, in the after, they will have to do an assumption. But the questions has been the same: revenue stream, cost and expenses. Do we have
Okay.
income? And do we still have the market share? Okay.
Okay, Sir
Uh,
Ricky, if I may politely interrupt, sir, one of our participants is asking if are you already sharing the PowerPoint slide or is this just part of
not
the introduction?
not yet. No slides
Okay,
yet.
sir. Okay,
No
sir.
slides yet. Because I
Sir.
want them to reflect that. I'm
Okay,
about
sir.
now to show the slide.
Sir Ricky,
Okay. I'm
while
now
you are operating on the slide, can I just recap for the sake of the people who just entered the room, sir?
right.
The
We have
the
300 plus already. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
already we started off with just 252. Now, for those of you who just joined, Sir Ricky is asking you to reflect on. Okay, so while Sir Ricky is fixing his PowerPoint presentation, so the landscape, that's the pre-COVID or the pre-Taal volcano, that's December 2019 and before that. And then January and up to now, that's the during the pandemic. And then the third would be the post. And here are the four things you need to reevaluate as Sir Ricky
What
is
are we showing?
fixing his presentation. You have to evaluate your revenue, number one. Number two, bottom line. Number three, market share. And number four, cost and expense.
Right. Okay. And I just like to also add this because I noticed we're now at 370 and more is
71, yes,
coming. You know?
sir.
So for those who just joined in, let me also just mention what I am sharing here. The intimacy is what we call a deep dive
Mhm.
in customer relations already. So that let us make that very clear, no? Because as I was saying earlier, and also for those, and we're still adding more people joining us.
Yeah.
As I said before, customer service for me, customer acquisition is above the line. There is a 38 parallel line that I look at, wherein when you acquire, when you service them, for me, those are givens already. They're above the line. What I am discussing is below the line now. And under below the line, I was mentioning there are three levels. The first level is intimacy, and this is what we are now covering. There is a second level, which is passion. That's a different story altogether, different strategy. And there is also what is called obsession. So I would not like to discuss those because I feel what's important now is first an appreciation. Should I and my company also consider a below the line? Yun ang unang tanong eh. Should I and my company consider a below the line or what I call deep dive? Deep dive. Okay, now I will be now going to slides. Okay, so you have assessed, our participants have assessed. You will have your own answers. You will have your own answers. Okay, and now I'd like to get everybody into the loop. Okay, here we go. Okay, so can you see now the slide?
Yes,
Okay, so
sir.
that, okay, this is my background, as I mentioned. And the reason why some of you might be asking, the professor is even talking about a deep dive, and then there's that kind of a alignment. It's because my background is I'm a business advisor, and also I look at things pragmatic po. Kumbaga, as much as possible, although I like to simplify things, I realize if you simplify things so much, everybody knows that already. So I'm a little pragmatic, and you'll see it in my background. I am an advisor, mentor on business strategies. So kaya nadadissect ko, dinadissect ko pa. At the same time, intimacy is very much related to psychology. And if you take a look at my background, I'm a behavioral psychologist, an EQ professional. I got that from the States, etc. So binabalansi ko po dito yung business side and the human behavior side. Okay, now, I was sharing to everyone about reflecting and reflecting before, reflecting now, during, and reflecting post-pandemic. I would assume I would assume that most of our participants probably answered that during this pandemic compared to before, their revenues are down, their income is down, their buyer base, they're probably not even sure who's still there, okay? Probably is down. But one thing I can guarantee you, your costs and expenses are also down, okay? Because the operations is practically held back. But then you'll find out one very important thing. Even if your costs and expenses are down, because the revenue is down, the income is down. So this is something I'd like people to also appreciate po, no? You can only minimize and cut your costs and expenses by so much for it to affect your income. At the end of the day, the way I see it, it's still revenue that will generate. The interesting thing about revenue, it is not based on what you would like to offer, particularly at this time. It is based on my diagram here, on what the buyer actually now will need. Ulitin ko lang po yun, ano? Because during good times, you can, and I've seen this happen, you can switch the buyer even to their wants. But during this kind of times, the buyer goes back to what they really need, not so much in terms of what they really want. And then, if you take a look now on my diagram, moving forward, this is a very important assessment also for everyone. What do you foresee? I don't want to use the word, what can you expect? Mahirap po mag-expect because our situation, and you can quote me on this, is still unfolding. And when situations are unfolding, it is so hard to make and you can quote me on this, a permanent decision. It's so hard. So I will not use the word, what do you expect? Okay. I would instead use the word, based on your assessment, what would be a fair revenue moving forward for you? What could be a fair income moving forward for you? What could be a fair buyer's base? If you had before 3,000 customers before, now you have probably 1/5 of that or even 1/10 of that. Okay, so moving forward, what do you think would be a fair number of buyers you could win back as well? This is very important po. Okay, and I would assume also that for those who is assessing the post-pandemic scenario, you are hoping, you are hoping that your post-pandemic scenario will be better than during the pandemic, but probably not immediately as good as what it was before the pandemic. And I feel this is very important for everyone because as I'm speaking right now, many of us are pressured already, many of us are stressed already. So we got to be more practical in the way we look at things. So, ang tawag ko po dyan as a behavioral psychologist, yung cognitive mind mo should be able to now assess better. Okay, assess better. Okay, now I move on. Okay. So there's the before, the during, the post. So in a way, at the back of the mind of each of our participants, nalatag na nila yan. Okay. I'd like to just remind, be reasonable when you are answering the questions post-pandemic. Now let's take a look at this. I move on. Under normal times, there are four buzzwords that I get to hear entrepreneurs, I get to hear business owners, I get to hear department managers, I get to hear salespeople. Okay. And what are these buzzwords? Let us grow our operations. Let us grow our business. Next, let us expand our market base. Let us expand, okay, our customer base. Okay, let us expand our reach. Then comes the third, and we will hire and we will acquire more people so that we can support our expansion. And finally, on number four, of course, as a business, I'm also a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I give mentoring and advisory. Once there is investment, once we talk of growth, once we talk of expansion, it goes down into let us generate more income. But what is happening today, my good friends? And I'm happy to hear that we have listeners and viewers from Asia, from the US, from the Middle East, and of course from the Philippines. My good friends, I would not like to use the word we are in bad times because as a behavioral psychologist, pinag-iingatan po namin yung words that we put in our mind. I would rather use the terminology we are in challenging times. Now, when we are in challenging times, growth is not being talked about. What is now being talked about, rationalize our operations. Diba? Kasi hindi tayo full capacity. Anong department lang ang mag-ooperate? Okay. The others work from home. So there is now rationalization. And then when earlier we were talking about expand our market base, what I'm hearing now is let us protect our markets. Baka mawala sila. Okay? Because I also realize this, it is during challenging times when markets are now more conscious of their decisions. Who really will we go for? During good times, that's not an issue for me. It's during tough times. Then, in terms of hire and acquire, and I know I have talked to a number of HR heads already and executives and management councils through the webinars that I have been asked to facilitate for them. Ang napag-uusapan ko, downsizing. Downsizing. Okay. Because there will be certain businesses that will be able to recover only towards the fourth quarter of this year or by next year. And there has been businesses already. I am connected also with the DTI, so we have numbers of companies who have closed down. So downsizing is a reality. And then the last of those items you generate, what are we now taking a look at? You will not be able to get the profit you had before. So what would you like to do? At least we still like to maintain a certain profitability man lang. We will definitely minimize our returns on investment. And, ladies and gentlemen, these are realities of the times. And because of these realities of the times, the question now is about how do we move forward? I was thinking about that, and I also do book. I'm a book reviewer of McGraw-Hill publications. Okay, so I get to myself immersed on many books about business, about recovery, and one of those that I find of interest, particularly during these times, is although this will be a bit dated already. Dated means to say matagal na po itong nailabas. But the learnings here, the discipline of market leaders by Michael Tracy and Fred Wiersma is very important for me. Bakit? So for those of you who's probably asking, Professor, what can we use as reference? Okay, this is one of those that I feel you should. And there's still so many because I do book reviews. But one of those is The Discipline of Market Leaders. Ano po ang sinasabi dito? Under the discipline of market leaders, the authors were able to identify three significant areas where companies should put focus on. One of those areas is what they call product leadership. Product leadership. Okay. And in product leadership, what does it really talk about? Product leadership talks about being the best in terms of the product, in terms of your research, in terms of your invention, in terms of your how fast you can come out with the product. So that's product features, and that is, as a business advisor and mentor, I always say, very important yan, product mo. How different is it from the others? Uniqueness. The second component that was shared, okay, to be competitive. And this is very important because now we need to be competitive still, is operational excellence. And operational excellence means to say, let's take a look at what we do, how we do our products. Let's take a look on how we can service our commitment. Let's take a look on efficiency. So ang focus po dyan is efficiency ng ginagawa natin, operational excellence. And the third component of this model, okay, is the intimacy. And I'm very happy actually, because as I mentioned earlier at the start of my presentation, intimacy is already for me a deep dive. Deep dive na yan eh. It does not, if you take a look at it, it does not talk about servicing. It talks about something deeper. It's called intimacy, and I appreciate that. Understanding and responding to the customer's needs. And we're not talking here anymore of products, we're talking of solutions. Now, when this book was crafted and published, there was no pandemic at that time. So this was being presented in terms of product leadership, operational excellence, and customer intimacy. If you can make these three work together, well and good, you will have your competitive advantage. However, and this is also what I like to mention to many po, pagka po tayo nagbabasa ng mga libro, mga reference materials, okay, as a book reviewer, caveat ko po ito ha, when I'm reading a book, okay, or I'm recommending from the list that this be read, I always say, please, when you read this book, bear in mind this was written during this period. Yung iba kasi, when they read the book, akala nila it can apply at any time, not necessarily. So yan po ang aking sharing sa lahat po. Be conscious when you read business models as well, because there are business models that were crafted during that time, and then you're applying it during this time. Doon nagkakaroon ng confusion. Okay, so as an advisor, as a mentor in business, very important po yan. Oh, by the way, I'm happy to note, we have already 400 plus already viewing us. How well, Good work.
Yes, sir.
Good work.
Not to mention the YouTube live stream and the LinkedIn, plus the Facebook FB Live. So we have more than 1,000 right now, sir.
That's true. Wonderful. I'm wonderful. I'm truly inspired. Now, I have been asked as a advisor and mentor, what should be the focus moving forward? Is it still these three? Okay. And ito po, I will answer it straightforward as an advisor, as a mentor. There's a difference. There are cases, I don't want to be a consultant, I want to be an advisor. Mas specific. Pag consultant, you give them all the options. If I'm being asked as a consultant, Professor De Vera, what do you suggest? I will tell them competitive advantage, product leadership, operational excellence, and customer intimacy. But if the question is, Professor De Vera, as an advisor, what would you suggest? Ito po. Pag iba po kasi sa akin ang pag sinabi mong as a consultant versus as an advisor, mas specific ang advisory eh. Ang consultant, dapat marami kang nakikita. Ang advisory, binibigyan mo ng focus. At pag mentor ka, kino-customize mo na. So when people get to talk to me, I always ask them, how do you want me to answer? Anyway, as an advisor, this is the way I see now things. I appreciate this model. But as an advisor, with what is happening now, this is the way I see it. Okay. If you're able to put product leadership, operational excellence, and customer intimacy together, okay, maganda yan. Kasi ang tawag yan threshold. Maganda yan. Meaning to say, your business is doing well. Then, if you have leaders, and the leaders are able to even do more, then it creates value. So, again, let me make it very clear. I remove the leadership, but I get my team, I get my company to be focused on product leadership, operational excellence, and customer intimacy. I will create threshold value. Now, if I have leaders, they're supposed to add, okay, into it. Kaya if you notice yung dotted line, they're supposed to strengthen it. Okay. Now, of course, operational excellence, okay, they have their own best practices. It's there. Their value proposition is it lowers cost. The golden rule is efficiency. Okay. The core process is the delivery. Okay. The improvements is constantly ask ourselves, how can we improve our processes? Okay. And then meron po tayong product leadership. Ang value proposition, dapat naiiba ang features natin. Ang golden rule dyan is ano ba yung pwedeng ibigay natin na hindi binibigay ng iba? What can we give? Others are not giving. And then it is very reliant on technology. Product leadership is very reliant on technology, not social media, technology, R&D, research. Customer intimacy takes a look at solutions. It takes a look at focusing on the needs. It takes a look at customization. Okay. And so therefore, my good friends, each of them will have their own pros and cons. So if I was asked, and I'm being asked now by many of my clients and people that I meet in the FB page and the webinars, etc., as an advisor, what is my recommendation? This is the way I look at it. Product leadership as a focus will give you that. Operational excellence will give you a bigger advantage. If you notice, lumaki yung arrow ko. Because operational excellence is about servicing time, turnaround times. It's about logistics. Product leadership is about features. Masarap ba yung pagkain mo? Okay? If you were a restaurant, ano ba yung ingredients yan? Pero kung hindi mo yan ma-deliver under operational efficiency, that's nothing. But then, in this kind of a situation that we have, and moving forward, what I see is customer intimacy is the deal breaker. It is the one that if we put more focus on it, okay, it will help not just organizations, it will help teams, it will help individuals. And I know there's many of you there who are now homegrown entrepreneurs. Natuto na kayo magluto and you're selling your products to your neighbors. Okay, so I'd like to make that, and that's good. That's home economics. Okay, and for me, of these three, it's the customer intimacy that will matter if we put more focus into it. Okay, so as an advisor, customer intimacy. As a consultant, all the three. Okay. Now, if you're going to ask me, sir, as a mentor, how will we do customer intimacy? Let's sit down kasi we customize that. Marami kasi tayong tanong. Okay. Nonetheless, I'd like to also clarify this. Customer intimacy is not customer experience management. Mayroon kasing confusion. Uh, Customer experience management is the experience that you give. Enterprise feedback management is the response that you would like to get after what you have given. And voice of the customer is what else the customer is looking for. Customer intimacy is deeper than all of this. Actually, all of these three, plus a lot more, makes up an intimacy. So if you tell me, wow, you know what? We have a customer experience management program. Is that already intimacy? No, that is just part of intimacy. We already have very good feedback mechanism. Is that getting to be intimate already? No, that is just one part. That's not yet the whole intimacy. Okay? So, malalim po ang intimacy. It sounds simple, but it is actually a lot more deep in terms of application. You know, like for example, in today's scenario, okay, probably you're noticing that you're getting new customers. Okay, you never got them before, but now you have them. Okay, fine. Question is this: uh, or you have customers now who is ordering more from you. But the question is this: are those customers ordering from you now more because they like you, or because the other provider that they were ordering before just simply cannot serve them for the meantime? A very critical question for me. Huh? So, is it because misleading then? Oh, when I think a number of you are familiar with analytics. Analytics is data gathering. Analytics is getting the data, putting it into statistics. Tama po yun. But from a behavioral perspective at from an advisory perspective, we always remind people as well, do not confuse repeat business with customer loyalty. Because there are questions here, as I mentioned. First question nga is this one. Are your customers who does not order before from you or orders less, ordering more now? Sir, yes. Are you happy? Sir, yes. Why are you happy? Because they're ordering from you now. Okay, fine. But are they ordering from you now because they are not being served by their previous suppliers? That's a big question. That's a big question. Don't get me wrong here. Kasi kung ang sagot mo, sa tingin ko, sir, ganito ang sagot ko sa'yo. Pang-temporary ka. I know it hurts. But as an advisor, as a mentor, we tell you if it hurts. Because that's what our value is. It hurts. Now, if you're saying, no, sir, it's because they really love us, then that's a different story. Next question. Or are you simply fulfilling because you're the nearest? Okay. Here's another one. Are you able to provide them because of capacity or capability? Ano ibig sabihin po niyan? Dahil meron ka talagang dapat si-serve na customers, and so therefore you have the supplies, but because those customers are not getting from you now, where are you going to give your supplies? You're now giving them to the other customers. So in other words, you were not really planning for this. You were looking for where to pass it on. But again, do not get us wrong here. As a consultant, as an advisor, I always tell people who's listening to me or my clients, you did not get me for me to tell you what you like to hear. You're talking to me for me to challenge you on what others don't want to challenge you on. I go now also to a question. How deep, what is the depth of your involvement with your accounts? Now, why is this very important? I am now receiving a lot of, if I were to call it, from customers, clients, and new friends and new clients saying, Mr. De Vera, alam nyo, realize ko, ang dami naming kliyente before the pandemic. Ngayon, because of the pandemic, nahihirapan kami mangolekta. You know where I'm coming from? Receivables. Eh. So that's a pain for a company. Eh. And that's where I'm coming from. Eh. And that's why I have also crafted now collections and receivables under the new normal. Pinag-isipan ko yan because I do that. And I said, no, at the end of the day, you still have to collect. You still have to manage your receivables. So I have crafted now a new normal for collections and receivable. At dun sa hindi involved at hindi malalim ang debt with their customers, you will realize this. Not all of your customers is yours. There will be some who says, because of this pandemic, hindi na muna ako magbabayad. Baka na lang, saka na lang. So how deep is your involvement with them? That's why we also now have what we call selective segmentation in account acquisition. Okay, so I hope you can connect for where I'm coming from. Not all our accounts we want to keep. And that's why this one I'm discussing now, this you want to do intimacy, you cannot do this for all your accounts. I have to be very clear already about that. I have to be very clear about that as we move on. Okay, so what is intimacy therefore? Intimacy is below. It's the deep dive. Okay. Intimacy is about getting to be closer, getting to be more transparent. It says here in my slide, it's about getting to really understand the customer's needs, what they need that they don't tell others, but they will tell you. It is about getting to understand, therefore, what is the pain points. It is being able to anticipate ahead of time before they even look for it. And if this customer intimacy, and like put it this way, customer intimacy is not a jargon. Please do not just bring, after this webinar, you go and tell your people in an online, customer intimacy. No, my good friends, you are not giving it the value. Customer intimacy is not a buzzword. Customer intimacy for me is a disciplined process. Actually, a 1 hour sharing is not enough. But as requested by Ariva, I am sharing this. Yung top line lang. But this is a discipline. Okay. So it is not just an activity. If this is done properly, my good friends, then you will have definitely the loyalty you've been waiting to get, the retention that you would like, and there will be more referrals. So customer intimacy, I like to put that, is a discipline. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of feeling, it's a way of behaving, and it is not simple. The benefits of customer intimacy as a discipline is you will have, kahit na po kumonti na ang iyong accounts, but if you can create that intimacy in them, they will become your ambassadors. You will have less turnovers from accounts that are of value. Let me make that also very clear, because I'm also a salesperson. I'm also a business professional. I have accounts that I feel, why did we get them? So in turnover, and what I'm trying to say is this one. Imagine if the accounts that is really of value, you lessen their turnover because of a discipline of customer intimacy. Then the retention, the cross-selling, the acquisition, and then of course your reputation. This is one thing that when people also ask, and I'd like to just share this, people would sometimes, I get to hear them say that, Mr. Professor De Vera, yung mga topics niyo po, minsan kakaiba eh. Kumbaga, never heard of. Okay? Like, you're talking of a buka. I mean, and that is the way to go. That's not really something that we have heard about. Or I talk about your career in a pandemic. I mean, sir, di ba? Dapat di yan pinag-uusapan kasi magiging malungkot. Sabi ko, hindi. That's how I make a difference. I talk about topics that people don't want to talk about because I I know about the topic, I practice the topic, and it builds a reputation. So intimacy is not about what everybody else knows. That's very important. Oh, that is very important. Now, the question is, how easy is it to enter into customer intimacy? It's difficult. It is difficult. It is not easy. Why? If I was going to talk about service, that's probably something everybody can relate to. If I was going to talk about let us acquire more customers, that is something that people can relate to. But if I talk about intimacy and then I say it's a deep dive, I I I notice there is more apprehension. Ano yan? Anong deep dive? What is that? Kaya ba natin yan? Eh, hindi na nga natin nakikita yung ating customers. Yeah. So, these are the issues or these are the challenges that you have to confront with. They're not going to be easy, my good friends. They will not be easy. That's why companies who goes into customer intimacy, either they get to really understand it well, or they get to talk to advisors or consultants who does customer intimacy, because this is what you're going to face. Number one, you might, as a viewer now, like the concept and the discipline of customer intimacy, but telling that to other internal departments, they might say, it won't happen. Ang daming gagawin. Here's another challenge there. You, as a viewer, probably now I am conditioning your mind that yes, customer intimacy is the way to go moving forward. But then I'm going to ask you this question. Do you have do you have a process? Do you have a system where you will be able to actually capture insightings, where you will be able to capture what are the moments of truth during this situation right now? Because as I understand it, in many companies, nung pumasok ang lockdown, di ba, most is work from home. So yung mga data hindi na naging as reliable. So most of the data that we have was before the pandemic. So that's also a very challenging situation. How do you do that? But there is an answer for that, and that's what we share when companies would like to really go in depth into it. Here's another challenge: segments priority. You know what I find so interesting is when I talk to salespeople and marketing people and account management people, claro sila. They segment the market. They have what they call, we have trial customers, then we have regular customers, we have value customers, maraming klase. Okay. And right now, what is a major challenge there is, of all the different segments that you have of your customer base, what segments will you provide the intimacy? Not easy to answer, my good friends. And in a situation such as this, where there is work from home, where it's online virtual, it's not easy to answer. Another set of issues that you have to face: the DM bureaucracy. And what is that? Decision making. Because for sure, if you would like to pursue customer intimacy, it would be good if you are the person, you are the department head, you are the vice president, and you are also the owner of the company. You're a one-man team. Why? Because the decision is all with you and you will implement it. But you'll notice the issue that I have now with many companies, the bureaucracy. All of those positions will only authorize you a certain amount of decision making. And when you talk about intimacy, we got to cut the chase and ask ourselves the question. So, dadaan pa ba sa maraming stages yan? Because that's going to be a challenge. I mean, if you cannot get away from this PM bureaucracy, you will have a difficulty in implementing a customer intimacy discipline and strategy for the organization. Then, yung existing PPPs, yung policies, di ba? What are these policies that we have? And most of the policies was created for the company, not for the customer. I'm willing to put my neck on the line. More than 70% of companies I've talked to in my last 30 years in being a advisor and consultant, most of their policies was not customer driven. It was company driven. I do not have anything against that. But if you are considering customer intimacy, you'll have to have a deep reflection on how your policies are now going to be guided. And then, of course, technology platform. Because we cannot deny this with what is happening. I'm not here to say you cannot do it. I am here to make you understand. It is interesting to become intimate. It is not going to be simple to make it happen. What your company can do, what is the parameters that's being given. Ano po kami naka-assess as business advisors. We just don't say, do this, do this, do this. But we do not have the time right now. We cannot do diagnostics. But we're more than willing if you're interested po. This is our this is who we are, etc., etc. Okay, that's your parameter, and this is what you can do as your customer intimacy initiatives. But since we do not have that, okay, but we can do that in an in-house or in class. But for the meantime, what are these initiatives you can look at? Might not be applicable, but you can look at. Craft strategies, number one, based on specific segments. I mentioned this already earlier. It is difficult and challenging to have intimacy across all your segments. Choose wisely. And there is a guideline, there's a checklist actually for that. But at least for the back of your mind, choose the segment you would like to be intimate with. Number two, something to also consider, it's payback time now. Your customers have given and ordered from you. You have generated revenue. At this point, under customer intimacy, show your appreciation. It's payback time. What are you now giving in return to them outside of the product and the services that they have been getting? You have to be innovative here. Gotta be creative here. Show your appreciation. It is payback time. And I realized there's this common statement that has been told to me, and I share this. You really know who your friends are when you are in desperate times. That's where I'd like to put it, that we are in disruptive times. How are you going to show your up? Another area you can look at in terms of intimacy is thinking now of ways and means to get those segments that you have identified to be more involved with how you will make decisions. What I realized with the number of companies, nag-lockdown na nga, please don't get me wrong here, nag-lockdown na nga, nag-meeting ang management, ito gagawin natin, ito gagawin natin, gagawin. Ang tanong ko, kailan nyo kinausap yung customer nyo? Bakit kayo na naman? Why is it you again as the management? Don't get me wrong again. I understand. You have to act fast. But then you're not becoming intimate there. Again, I'm sharing this if you say, yes, let's become customer intimate. When you become customer intimate, you cannot make all the decisions. You cannot just be influenced by your circle. Another one is thrive on feedback. Okay, and this is for me, this is very interesting because I like it. Have you ever tried Skype or FB Messenger? After a call, right after that, diba, merong 5 stars that, please rate, immediate. Oh, I love that because it means to say they are concerned on how to improve the way they are able to become more intimate on the spot. Okay. And I feel that is another area you can create it. Enough na po yung after this call, after 2 days, we'll send you a feedback form. My good friends, those were medieval. Sorry for that. But today, do it right after. There are cases I love this terminology, on the fly, as it is happening. And then touch point analysis. Huh? With the advent of social media that we're now using, actually customer intimacy swap share with today's scenario because you can now do more touch points and analysis by using the social media channels and platforms that you decide to use that your customers are willing to embrace it. Okay? So again, ulitin ko lang po if you notice the way I said it, touchpoint analysis is when you decide on the social media channels and platforms that you would like and that your customers are willing to embrace. I cannot forget them. It's not always about the company. And then, yeah, I talked about this, the policies. Uh, Now is the best time. And I'm happy because a number of our clients now, we're continuing doing uh, online sessions with them, reviewing now company policies in relation to a new normal. Ang ganda ng mga discussion namin. And when is the best time to review a policy? When you're in a lockdown. Why? Because you can concentrate and you can discuss. But again, the policy should be properly guided for intimacy. You can also take a look at creating events. You can also take a look at incentivizing customer advocacy. There's again, as we mentioned, there are so many things that a company, a department, a business owner, an entrepreneur, even you right now who is viewing us, can actually do. There are so many on customer intimacy. The challenge is which one is applicable for you, which one will be meaningful for the customers that you have, which one can you actually sustain? And that is why I'd like to put this as I therefore dito ko isa-summarize siya na. I've been hearing many there on a regular basis, almost on a daily basis, they go online with their management team, they go online with their people. I say fine, maganda yan eh. But however, this is my sharing I have realized that it is not hard work. It is not being online to meet with your team that will drive success. Because that can happen. Uy mag-online meeting na naman tayo every day yan at 9 o'clock that's fine. And people can follow that. But then my question is this one. Were you productive or were you just being active? Para lang masabing may ginagawa tayo. Please do not be offended for those who are listening. If you have a different way of looking at it, I will accept that because I'm a behavioral psychologist. There's no right or wrong. Ang akin po is a sharing here. I have realized that it is not hard work that will drive success, but it is meaningful endeavors that will drive results. So where am I coming from? Okay. With this, pinag-iisipan ko po yan eh. Okay. Because hard work would mean to say being busy, being active. But meaningful would mean to say creating value, being more intimate. And I always say this as well, very classic ito. When people blame, but we don't have too much time to create value. Okay. Sa akin po kasi, iba nga, as an advisor, I'm an orthodox eh. I look at things a little differently. Okay? And I say, why have we been blaming time? We have less time, we don't have any time. When time, ever since it was invented, has been 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour, 24 hours in a day. Ever since that clock has been invented, time has never changed. It's always been that way. So I was asking myself this question. Is it time that I should put focus on? or is it what I do given whatever time is allocated to me? Because if I say the second, it is what I do, it's not time, it is what I do given the time that is allocated to me, then as a business uh, person, as a psychologist, a behavioral psychologist, I will therefore say to myself, kung ganito lang ang time given to me, then I will make the best use of it by giving it something more than what I regularly give. And that's behavioral. That's why I was telling people as well, you can continue telling people there are skills, but at the end of the day, kung walang meaning. Kasi ang tanong nga why do we have to go intimate with our customers? Nasa service naman namin yan eh. But the question nga is this one. But when are you going to go deep dive? When do you want to actually get to know them better? When do you want to be able to say that if there will be another pandemic, I will still have my customers? And that is where the meaningfulness comes in now. And for me, that is very important. And the last point I would like to share, if a company is not customer centric, it will be very difficult for customer intimacy to come in. You might have heard, maybe some of our viewers have heard of that, be customer centric. It's a buzzword. Again, I feel sad about that. It's a buzzword. We are customer centric. But then I say, but where's my order? Sir, kasi hindi pa ho dumadating yung mag-deliver. Wow. You know, we are customer centric. So what is the decision? Sir, kasi we're still getting in touch with our vice president because of the lockdown. Hindi pa siya nagre-reply. I mean, I hope you don't mind, my good friends. We are not actually customer centric if that is the way you are positioning your response to the market. That's why I sense that most companies will still be customer service oriented. But that is what is expected. But in a situation right now, when will your team, when will your companies become customer centric? Because if you are moving towards centricity, then let's talk about inciting. And then once you're able to deliver inciting, let's talk about customer passion. And then when you're able to deliver customer passion, let us talk about customer obsession. People to reflect on. Okay? And as we said, a 1 hour sharing is never enough. This is something, customer intimate. Deep dive is a terminology I love because whenever there are situations, I deep dive into it and I ask myself, what else? For me, it's not even a question of when you should go intimate with your customers. It is about what will we do when we are already intimated. Because intimacy is deep dive. Deep dive. And that's the reason why you create more meaning. I have a lot more of these things that I share. Again, I share this because that's my contribution to, to people who'd like to know more. We got to think it's not the time. It is what you do to make it meaningful. That is what is important. So I have that in my social media as well, and I share that to everyone. Those are some of the insights that I'd like to share to you. Okay, so yeah, I guess Howell, you can take it away from this
Thank
point
you
now.
so much, Dr. Ricky De Vera, Professor Ricky. You know what? It's a jam-packed 1 hour program which felt like it's an 8 hour program worth of material. Tama ba, Sir Ricky? It could be a whole day workshop. What you have just shared with us.
Yeah, we could do and bring it even more customized for them. But it's an eye opener. That's what we'd like to do.
And when we thank you for that. So right now we are seeing tons of appreciation, thank yous, and applauses for you, sir. And we thank you for that. Now, Sir Ricky, we'll give you 2 minutes, and our participants 2 minutes to grab yourself a bite or a drink or a cup of coffee, so that when we return after 2 minutes, we'll be proceeding with the Q&A portion. So for those of you who are Zoom participants, please type in your question at the Q&A box. And for the next 2 minutes, let me tell you this, first come, first serve. Just this morning, we had 95 questions. We only were able to answer 20 questions. So if I were you, type in your questions now. And before we pause for a break, let's greet a very happy birthday, Miss Katrina Abana and Miss Hera, or Miss, I'm not sure if it's babae, oh. So Hera, or yeah, Miss Hera Anora. So Katrina Abana and Hera Anora, happy birthday! Again, don't you go away, everyone. We'll be right back in 2 minutes' time. We promise that.